Hi, good morning and welcome back to another edition of Discover History. I'm Brad Bertelli. We're here at the Keys History and Discovery Center. And while this should be a live Facebook post, we had some technical difficulties, so this is coming to you sort of live. So today we're going to take a little virtual tour of my favorite island in the Florida Keys, Indian Key, by way of this amazing model that we have on display. And so let's take a quick peek over here and we will take a little stroll through the island. Now today it's a state park. It became a state park in 1971, and it is known as Indian Key Historic State Park. And it is today really the Florida Keys' only ghost town. There are still some of the, all these roadways, these little streets are still visible on the island. They've been cleared and you can take a stroll around them. And as you do stroll around the island, you'll see some ruins, especially of the warehouse right here. And you'll see some cisterns, ruins here, and some more cisterns that used to be located right here, and as well as some other ruins from the cistern here on the at what is the Charles Howe property. And then up here a little bit there is some bricks that used to be what is thought to have been a post office. So let's talk a little bit about some of the buildings. In 1824, Silas Fletcher came to the island, and he was hired by a couple of guys down at Port Monroe, which is around Key Vaca, and he was hired to come to Indian Key and to build a general store. He had a partner named Joe Prince, and they came to the island, and their first building they made created was this general store right here, which is what they were supposed to build. This was in 1824, and that became the first really structure on the island. And Silas Fletcher became the first permanent resident during the American period on the island. Now, in addition to building the general store, they also had to build a place for he and his family to live, and they built this two-story structure, which is no longer visible on the island, but this was their house, and it was for he and his wife and two children. I think Joseph Prince also may have stayed here a little bit. But in 1928, this building and the general store were sold to a guy named Thomas Gibson, and Gibson turned this two-story building into what became known as the Tropical Hotel. And along with the Tropical Hotel, there was this kitchen building here, and also what was a 9-pin bowling alley. And this is a representation of that 9-pin bowling alley. This is really the most famous, probably one of the most famous structures on the island. I'm going to read to you this advertisement that was posted in 1835 in several newspapers nationwide, and it talking about the hotel. The subscriber, having settled himself on Indian Key, had determined to open a house for boarding and lodging, and believing it to be one of the most favorable situations in the United States for persons who are suffering from pulmonary, dyspeptic, and numerous chronic diseases, and obliged to seek refuge from the chill blasts of a northern winter, he feels safe in saying that Indian Key cannot be surpassed for beauty, health, and climate. Frost has never been known here. The thermometer seldom below 55 or 56 in winter, nor up to 90 in summer. It is entirely exposed to the sea from every point of the compass. The fare of his table and bar shall be as good as the market will afford, and attended by experienced servers. Private rooms for lodging gentlemen, ladies, and families neatly arranged. So it's really the first advertised hotel in all of the Upper Keys, or really outside of Key West. And it was, kind of reminds you of some of the descriptions of restaurants today, offering, kind of the farm to table or sea to table, dock to table preparations. Now, the largest structure on the building, and where the most significant ruins are, is this structure here, which was the warehouse. It's actually two separate buildings, and there was a door inside that kind of linked them. And if you're out at the island today, you can see one of the kind of a door structure that is still standing. This was 3 stories tall, And underneath this one, the back one, was a very large freshwater, very large cistern that collected rainwater. This side of the island would be the business side of the island. This side of the island is this faces Lower Matecumbe and Upper Matecumbe. Kind of over here is where the state park dock is today. And so you would actually enter, if the dock was operational, Hurricane Irma in 2017 took it out. If the dock was optional or workable, you could dock here, and then you would kind of walk down this road here, and then the first real ruin you would find would be this warehouse structure. Now this building behind it, this was known as the William English House, and he became a Florida territorial senator, along with his uncle, a man named Fitzpatrick. It's Fitzpatrick Street in Key West. Fitzpatrick was the one who would actually would be the president of the territorial Congress, or not Congress, territorial, I'm going to say Congress for now, Congress in 1836 that created Dade County, that separated Monroe County into two counties and put Dade County, Indian Key and Dade County, which made Indian Key the temporary
Seat.
What?
Seat.
Yes, the county seat. So this is the, and there was, this is the business end. We see these large wharfs. And notice on the wharfs, if Aaron can get a little picture, they didn't have plumbing back there, back in those days on the island. So on all of the docks, we had these little buildings, these little outhouses, so you could have the tidal water kind of, sweep things away to make sure that, that things were swept away. This would be the Jacob Hausman house. There were 3 two-story houses on the island. There was the Tropical Hotel, there was Jacob Hausman's house, and then next door here, and he would eventually buy the Tropical Hotel and the general store from Thomas Gibson, who was his brother-in-law. And then he spent a lot of money and time developing the island and planting fruit trees and landscaping and building these wharfs and docks, because he wanted to create a wrecking colony that would compete with Key West. We have these 2 structures over here. These would be the blacksmith and the carpenter shop. You'd want that blacksmith shop kind of on a point away from the rest of the island, because you were working with fire there and with the heat. And this little point, this little finger of land no longer exists. But as also kind of a matter of note, the blacksmith also kind of worked as the dentist in those days, because he had all the tools. So you'd want that dentist shop as far away from everybody else as possible, in case there was screaming or other kind of things when teeth were being pulled, without the benefits of anything more than probably lots of liquor. Maybe the most important or most famous house is this house, which is where Dr. Henry Perrine and his family were living during the Indian attack of 1840. This was actually built in around 1832 by a man named James Egan, and he was offering this house, operated as a boarding house during the early 1830s, and this is actually where John James Audubon stayed on the island when he visited in 1832. And he had hired Egan as his guide, his pilot around as he was looking for bird samples for his collection, for his sketches. And this house, of course, the Perrine family hid in the house. They hid underneath the turtle crawl, while Henry Perrine Sr., the father, barricaded himself up in this cupola, and the Indians actually kind of broke through the cupola and shot and killed him. Now behind here is the Charles Howe house. And Charles Howe, this was the only structure, not the only structure, but one of the structures that was unmolested during the attack of 1840. The Indians, when they came into his house, he was a mason and found some of his some of his Mason gear and kind of a symbolic, or his symbols, and the Indians may have thought that it was a kind of a protected or religious area, so they left that building alone. Howe was operated as the postmaster for the island from 1835 during 1835 to 1840-ish. So this was one of the earliest post offices in the Florida Keys as well. Outside of Key West, this was once the only post office outside of Key West, which is one of the reasons why back in the 1830s and 1820s, Indian Key was the most important island in the Florida Keys, not named Key West. Now, along the street here, we see these four structures. These were homes for some of the families that were living there. And again, we always see these small houses behind them, and those were the kitchen houses, because you didn't want to have your kitchen in the same building as your house for a couple of reasons. First off, those kitchens put off a lot of heat, and the heat was caused by fire, and you didn't want to have that risk of fire to help risk burning down your house. And today, when you go out to the island, you'll see a couple of really nice cisterns that are still fairly intact, and that is underneath actually the kitchen houses here. That's where those are. Now, on some of the houses in the model, here's the Jacob Hausman house here with these small buildings, and the English house with those small buildings, and then back over here with the Charles Howe house and these small buildings. These were all slave quarters, and most everybody on the island did have slaves in their employ. So that's why you see some of the houses have more than just the house. You have the main house, you have the kitchen house, and for several of the larger owners, you had several homes for their slaves. So the island is still accessible, it's still open to the public, while the dock is, the state park dock is still not fixed. You can reach the island by paddleboard, by kayak. If you take a small boat, you can anchor in the shallows, disembark, and kind of wade up onto the island. There is a $2.50 fee per person. It's an honor system, so be sure and help support the park system. It's definitely worth the trip to go out there and to see a piece of history, to experience, kind of get away and kind of walk back into time. If you've not visited Indian Key, come by the Discovery Center, check out the model, and then take a kayak out of Robbie's or take your skiff out there and walk around the island and really get a feel of kind of old Florida Keys and experience kind of what it was like to live in one of those pioneer communities. So we hope you enjoyed today's talk about Indian Key. We will talk to you next week where we'll explore some more Florida Keys history. In the meantime, you guys have a great week. Thanks so much.